Hi everyone, welcome to part 2 or number 2 of the eye tutorial videos. The first one was of a dog's eye and this one is, as you can see, hopefully a cat's eye. First one we did with the dog's eye was beautiful warm brown and ambers, and this one has got lots of beautiful shades of green, touches of blue and some ochres in there. So the eye on this one is a little bit larger than the one that we did on the dog's eye. I do have the dog's eye one here. There's the finished version of the dog's eye. So as you can see, the cat's eye itself is a little bit larger. Here is the reference photo. I've got it up on my tablet next to me as I work. So exactly the same process that we're going to use for transferring the to get a line drawing down on our, I'm using white pastel mat again here. So what I've done is literally laid down a piece of the graphite transfer paper again, just taped it at the top, and that way as you're transferring your line drawing you can keep flipping it back up to make sure that your lines are going through with enough pressure. And I've just literally printed out the reference photo of the eye itself and again just pinned it up over the top. One thing I do suggest to do sometimes is, I can be quite heavy-handed sometimes and just I can, as I'm working, I can sometimes indent the graphite paper and make it smudge through onto my pastel mat as I work. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll just get some of my glassine, fold it over a couple of times so it's just there's a little bit more cushioning between my hand and that graphite paper, so I'm not going to hopefully smudge any marks through. So all we're going to do first of all is transfer some of our basic lines through of this cat eye. So here again I'm using the stylus. As I've said before, you don't necessarily need to buy an art stylus. These are just nail art tools from eBay, and you can buy sort of 5 for a couple of pounds, and I'm using the finest tip that I've got. So let's just try a little test transfer line there of the pupil. Flip up our paper and there we can see that's transferring through really nicely, so I know now what pressure to use. So I'm just going to mark in obviously the difference between one of the main differences between a domestic cat eye and that of a wild cat or a dog is the pupil, is this slot shape rather than with a tiger or a leopard. The pupil is like most other animals, as in it's rounded. I will look up the technical terms. As you can see here, I'm just literally just popping in some of the shapes. I've marked in the highlight shape there, the reflection. I'm going to mark in a few of the colour lines of the iris. Probably lose all of these as we work, but it's just little guidelines to get us started really. And of course, if you wanted to draw this freehand, you can. If you want to transfer any other method, you can. I'm just doing it this way because it shows up really well for the sake of doing a video tutorial. The whole purpose of these tutorials as well is literally just to get you looking at your pupils, so that we're never ever going to draw a cat this size, to be honest. I mean, this is, let's have a look, 1, 2, 3, say 4 inches across. I mean, to draw the whole cat, we're talking huge. And there's no way I'd ever draw a portrait just of the head and shoulders or a head of a cat that size. You might if you're using a different medium like acrylics or something that you can cover a nice big canvas quite quickly. But this is literally more of just a little tester, one to show you how we lay down layers of coloured pencil and glaze and build up textures and softness and blends the colours. But also it's so when you actually then go back down to drawing, like say you did this cat, I don't know, A3 size, the eyes might be sort of, I don't know, a centimetre, 1.5 centimetres across, so you wouldn't get any, well, very much of this detail in at all, but it's just to make you aware that these are the colours that are in that pupil. You don't want to just put in a flat layer of green, with a white highlight and a black pupil. Because it will just look really flat. You just need to be aware of some of these layers of colours that are in here and try to incorporate those into your tinier space on a portrait, but obviously not going into quite as much detail. Okay, so when you're doing this as well, yes, I'm using the printout, but I've also got right beside me here my actual clearer reference photo on my tablet, so I can keep, if I'm not sure, if something doesn't quite print it out, I just flick back and refer to my reference photo proper. So I always recommend that you keep your digital or your high resolution image there beside you. Like here now, I just want to see what's going on here, so that comes down here. And same as with the dog's eye, we're not really focusing too much on the fur. We'll pop some fur in just for effect later on, but this is more about a study of the eye itself, the eyeball itself. See, in the written tutorial, I will add in some of the detail of the anatomy as well. Because you do get general rules, I say, pretty much with all cats. Like, they have this beautiful, I call it the eyeliner line, like the Cleopatra line of the eyeliner coming away. Pretty much all cats have that, and it's the flow of that upper lid. And I've seen people place it sort of up here or down here, and it completely throws out the line, the soft flowing line of that eye and that brow. Let's just sweep that one down through there. And obviously this is the actual cat that we're drawing. I went to Dartmoor Wildlife Park to spend a day with their tigers a few years ago. Got some beautiful photos, but then as I was walking back to the car, I'd left the wildlife park and was just walking back down to their car park, and a beautiful little Bengal kitten. She must have been about 3-4 months old. She was just playing on the path as I was walking along. She was quite coy, and as I had my camera there, I thought, oh, I'll just take a few photos, and I managed to get some beautiful ones because she was just so fascinated with all the noises and the birds and the rustling of the leaves on the path, so she was posing quite nicely. And I did actually do a portrait of her in pastels, again, about 3 years ago I think now, but this image, the full image of this one, makes a beautiful pose. So I'm hoping some of you, rather than just drawing the eye, some of you might revisit and create the whole cat portrait, because she is rather beautiful. So down here, I'm just going to put in like a few markings of the fur direction, just quite quickly. If I go silent on the videos, it's just where I'm concentrating. I've probably got my mouth open as well. Thankfully you don't have to watch me as I draw. I can be like, oh, I'm just concentrating, trying to multitask and remember to talk at the same time. I'm also creating this in this home studio, and even though I've fed the dogs and stuffed them full of treats and they should all be asleep downstairs on the sofas, I'm hoping they don't hear any noises and decide to start barking and ad-libbing their own commentary to the video. If they do, I apologise, and I'll try and edit it out, but just warning you now, there might be a chance of a little chorus of barks in the background. It'll probably be the collie that sets them off, or one of the collies. Okay, so let's flick this up and see what we've got. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I think we've got enough, more than enough lines in there. And then all we do is we simply lift off our reference photo, we keep that up to one side, just to refer back to, and then we take away this, what I really don't like, this horrible graphite paper. And there you should be able to see a line drawing. I'll just zoom in on it a little bit. And I'm probably going to go in with a little bit of tape, and remember I use this framers tape, the brown framers tape. It's very low tack, it's cheap, much better than masking tape. I'm just going to go in, it's not too bad here, but just to show you can lift off and just soften some of these lines. If your graphite's gone a little bit too harsh, you can just lift a little bit off, and same as I've got that smudgy mark there. Let me just lift that away. Should be fine. Okay, so we are ready to go. So next up will be our colour choice. Okay, so we've got our line drawing, and I've now done my colour selection. So again, I've got my reference photo there. You see lots of turquoisey, bluey greens, some yellowy ochres. So literally I've just been through. I'm working again with the polychromos. Again, I probably won't use all of these, but these are all the colours I can see in there. Some might appear just from mixing, like a couple of the dark greens. I've selected 2 or 3 there. I might only use 1 or possibly 2. And same with the turquoisey blues over here. I might only use 1 or 2 of these, but I've just, oh look, my nails match. I'm sorry, I might just use a couple there. A couple of other ones often pop up. I've got my earth green, obviously my dark indigo, Prussian blue, Dantarin blue, cream, ivory, one of my greys, and of course I've got my Pablo white there just in case I want to enhance the highlights. But first thing we will do is go in, don't drop my pencils, with my polychroma, and we're going to pop in our white highlight, which is where I always start with when working on eyes. So where is my glassine paper? I seem to have lost that already. Never ever start without having it under my hand. And what I'll do as well, because we're only working on a small space, is I'm just going to tape that glassine into place, because I'm not going to be working on any of the fur until later on. We're going to be focusing in on that eye. So if I just pop this here, yep, that should give me a good reach all over, and I don't have to keep picking my glassine up every time I move my hand, so I drop it onto the floor. So the reference photo on the video is going to pop up here on the left hand side, so hopefully you'll be able to see that. First thing we will do is go in, and even though we're working on the white paper, we are going to pop in our white highlights. We just want to get some white down underneath where that highlight sits, and that means, well, first of all, okay, let's start at the beginning. we're working on Pastelmat. Pastelmat has quite a coarse tooth. Tooth of the paper with Pastelmat, if you think about the grits of the paper, so I'm concentrating as I talk, so I might pause in between words. If you think of the paper as having mountains and valleys, and that's what creates the tooth. So what we're going to do is, when we first put pigment down onto a virgin piece of Pastelmat, it's got very definite mountains and valleys because that tooth hasn't been touched. And what we want to do is build up some pigment into the valleys so that with each layer the tooth gets less obvious and less grainy, so there's less of those mountains showing, and also we are starting to soften back the tops of those mountains as well. We don't want to go in really hard and crush the mountains though, because that means we'll flatten it down into the valleys and then there'll be no grip for our pencils to hold on to. And the stroke that I'm using here, I'm using something called scumbling. So if I'm going to zoom in so you can see exactly what I mean. Okay, so doing it really slow. These are really small strokes, just small circular strokes of even pressure to cover an area and lay pigment down. And that is what you call scumbling. Okay, let me zoom back out again. There we go. So a little bit more of the white highlight over here. And I appreciate you can't actually see where you're laying the pigment down initially, but just means now when we go in with our blue over the top and then we'll go over it again with white, we'll have a lovely little foundation of pigment in those valleys already building up. And also it means that when we put the blue on and then the next layer of white or grey, it's already starting to blend the different colour layers. Okay, so we've popped in our white highlights, even though you can't see them. Now we're going to go in, sharp pencils you'll notice, and we're going to pop in first of all the pupil, and then we're going to pop in a really nice, the dark outline under the lid and along the top edge of the lower lid here, so then we've got a nice foundation shape to basically colour in. And we want to fill the whole of this space with a layer of pigment, so then we can just start building up the layers, blending, softening, detailing. So again, I'm still scumbling, but little tiny circular motions now. And sometimes I'll change the direction of the circular motion, so I might be going anti-clockwise and then I might just turn it around so that we're ensuring that we're getting the pigment going in against those mountains, into the troughs, the valleys, equally from both directions, all directions. Like I say, this is just one layer that's going down, even where that black is. Be more layers going down later on. So, marking around outer edge of the iris. Obviously, if you've already followed the dog eye tutorial video, a lot of this will be quite repetitive. Pretty much the same theory, just different colours and a couple of different facts within this one, obviously. And like I say, again, we're working on a bigger area of the eye itself with this one. The dog eye was covered with a much heavier lid down over the eye itself. This, obviously the cat is looking up with this one, so head is leaning back, eye is looking upwards, so it's much more open and there's much more of the eye visible. Now here, I'm just a little bit awkward for me here because normally I'd have the paper free and I'd be able to move it around, but because it's for the tutorial, I'm trying to keep the paper in one place, so a couple of lines that I missed out here when I was doing my transfer. It's not a problem. So that's the outer edge. Just going to literally shade that in so we know where we are. Just a light layer in there. And same now, we'll just bring this, continue this forward. Move my glassina down a tiny bit. Just move this line forward now into the corner of the eye. See, I'm just referring, my eyes are flicking to that reference photo all the time there. Okay, so this goes up into shadow up here, and I'm just shading this in just so we know roughly where we are. Hear any noise in the background? That's because one of the collies has decided to venture up and see me to see what's going on. So let's just... yeah, so okay, so now all I need to do is just fill in. Remember, on animal eyes, most eyes, this upper lid, underneath the upper lid, is one of the darkest areas that you'll find on an animal, so don't be afraid to go in there nice and heavy. Again, I'm just going to shade in up here. We'll come back in later on and increase the depth of the value of how heavy that shadow is under that upper brow. And again up here. Take all of this back to darkness. See, quite loose with my pencil strokes at the moment. Keeping my pencil on the paper, I'm just filling that space in, and then once we are pretty confident that we've got all the lines in the right place, then we can go in on the next point and start to intensify that shadow. Like that, so a little bit more pressure. I'd say all of this is exaggerated because we wouldn't really be drawing cat's eyes this big unless we're working on a huge canvas. Okay. By sinking this really heavy shadow in, it automatically, remember what we're drawing is a ball, a glass ball. That's what the eye is. It's spherical, rounded, with highlights hitting it. Yes, there's beautiful patterns and everything within, but we need to create that, not illusion, well yeah, it is an illusion, but it is real. We need to create that rounded shape of the eyeball. The iris and everything has got the beautiful patterns and everything within, which we add in later on. But as I say, by putting in this really dark shadow, that's where the eyeball sinks away into and under. So we need it to be really dark, heavy shadow. And what that does then is it automatically pulls or pushes the eyeball itself outwards. So we're sinking the lid back, and by doing so we're pushing the eyeball out towards us. A little soft layer there. We'll go into this dark. I put this in quite heavily. We will go into it with our dark indigos. Possibly some of our ochre, but for now, sunk that back quite well. But we do need to build the layers up. You can see it's really grainy still. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is just go in around where we popped in our white highlights earlier on. in a touch of sky blue. Well, it's not sky blue, it's actually light ultramarine. Just up around the edges of this white. Yeah, just a little touch, a little bit in over the top of the white. Just, again, see I'm doing those little small circular motions, really, really light pressure as well. Yeah, I'm just going to shade in here. Touch of blue. It's more just to... There's lots of little shapes within the texture of this iris itself. So I just want to get all the edges, all of this filled in, so we can just start building the colour. Okay, so now I'm just going to go in now with the Prussian blue. Some Prussian blue just leading out of the top of this pupil, up to the top of that highlight, around the highlight, and going away into the outer edges. It's quite a mix of like the Prussian blue and a couple of different greens up across there. And you can see all those little lines we put in first of all. Pretty much gone already now, to be honest. Let's take a little bit of blue right around that outside edge. And so if you see different colours in here, I'm telling you the colours that I'm using. If you see different colours, please use your own palette of colours that you see. I ought to do a video tutorial where I don't actually tell you, I cover up the colours. Don't tell you what I use, and then it'll force you to look really hard and see your own natural colours that that jump out for you, rather than you're just following and using the ones that I use. Because in time, let's say, it doesn't take long for your eyes to be trained to be seeing the colours themselves. Okay. Just kind of trust yourself when you're doing this as well. It takes, once you've done this a couple of times, you'll understand about how many, when you start building up your layers, how they do blend. But until you've actually had a go and started blending putting your dark colours underneath and then your different midtones on the top, just like mixing paints. You won't understand it. It's something you can only do by touch and feel and practice. You can watch someone else doing it and go, yeah, okay, so I kind of understand the theory of what she did and the logic behind how she got there, but unless you do it yourself, you don't fully appreciate or understand it. Now I need to pop in a dark green here now. I think I actually need both of these, so I'm going to go in with the, this is a deep cobalt green first of all, just up here over where I've laid some of that Prussian blue down. Put in lots of darks first, and then we can glaze over the top with our lighter greens in a bit. And then we go back in with these again. Now as we come around that top edge, I want to switch over to a chrome oxide green down through here. It's a much more petrol-y blue green on the right hand side, and it goes into more of a like an olive, dark olivey green over on this side. Okay, flicking back over to that deep cobalt green as I come down over this side again. Also in here. So already here we've had that light ultramarine, we've had the Prussian blue, and now this deep cobalt going over the top, and that's just the first of many layers. Okay, now I'll pull out these blues. I'm going to go in with the darkest one first of all, which is the Helio turquoise. So this is the darkest one. And I know as we're putting these colours on, one, they're going on quite rough anyway, but they look really dark. That's because we're going to be glazing over the top with some of our lighter colours in a moment. That's one of the main lessons behind this. I just need to pop in a little bit of Danthrin blue just in here. And also down here, I just need to pop it in where I can see it as I see it. Better. If you notice here with my strokes as well, it's exactly the same as I said with the dog eye. When you're working on eyes, I don't do strokes that go round. Even if you see rings, they're not rings like I say like on Saturn, because if you just draw rings going around the pupil, or in this shape, you know, if you start doing almost ovals or diamonds around that pupil, it'll just look like flat shapes, geometric shapes. Think about that curve, that sphere again, coming up and around. So what we're doing is we're pulling the texture and the patterns up, out of the shadows, up and over, and or away from the pupil, out and over. It's always going around, we're working around, so we're always working from the outside in or the inside out, no matter which direction or what point we're coming away from the outer edge. So it's always working inwards or outwards with our pencil strokes, never around. And that will make a huge difference. Okay, so now I've got, I don't know if I need, yeah, I do need a touch of this one. This is the cobalt green. So I'm going to pop in down here in this bottom corner. Some of these pencils I don't think have been out of the pencil tray and been used since I bought them, to be honest. I must admit this is going to be rather pretty cat's eye when it's all built up. There are some yummy colours going in there. The same theory as like when we do the fur as well, though we are working dark to light with our application. Okay, so there's little dots of this over here. I'd say this left hand side of the eyes, slightly different colouring to the right hand side. Touch in there. It's a shame, just looking on the camera, doesn't seem to be picking up quite as true colour as it actually is. But we should just carry on. Okay, so I'm switching over to the light cobalt turquoise. As you can see, we're starting to go from our darks up through our lights now. I still need to get lots of green down over in this corner as well. Yes, this is all looking very circle. So you can see here, what I'm going to do is just going to zoom in a few. So you can see what I'm actually talking about. Just across here. Look. You might just see it faintly. Just across here, it's a very faint line. Now, I had this when I did the snow leopard. It does happen every now and again. Let's see. Just here's a faint line. And I'm guessing it's going to come all the way up here when I added some just shade over here. Let's just show you. Yeah, and basically what it is that's a fault that comes up from the production. There's some sort of line across there. It only starts, you can't see it to the naked eye on the virgin paper, but when you start putting pencil over the top, that's when it shows itself. So you just have to basically build your layers and trust that you will eliminate that flaw at some point. Okay, so I think we're ready now to go in with some of our greens and touches of our yellows. Let's have a look. So I'm going to first of all go in, I love this one, this is a green gold. I'm going to just come in over the top. Some of those dark greens that we added in earlier on. And again, this is going to go on too bright, but we're going to soften it back with other glazes over the top. A little nooks in there. Glaze or layer. You see my strokes are all going out towards that outer edge and in towards the pupil. Now, any little hints of this outline. Top edge. And again, my eyes are constantly flicking backwards and forwards to that reference image. looking at this and thinking, oh my goodness me, that just looks horrific. Have faith, trust. And when you put your next light glaze on, then it will all soften back. And you'll kind of just repeat the process by going back in and popping all these colours back in again, just in smaller amounts, refining each layer. Okay. I might pop in a little touch of dark yellow ochre. A little touch just up here. Here and here. Okay. So now onto one of our favourites, our earth green. So we're going to glaze over all of this, pretty much all of the eye now, and you'll see it should soften at this point really quite a lot. So let's start over in this far corner, and I'll make sure that I'm doing this, like I say, in that direction, inwards from the outer edge of the eye. Okay, so now it looks like it's gone quite dirty there now. That's fine, because we're going to go in there with our light greys, and we've got our ivory, we've got our white, and I'll lift it all. Then we can go back in and pop back in those turquoisey colours, and our greens again. If I zoom in on this again, there's another one of those marks across there. It's almost like the paper's been scratched. So we need to work and eliminate those as well. Okay, so there we can see it's, I don't know, it's starting to look like an underwater scene. Like an aquarium, but we're just, what we're doing here, we've, remember going back to what we said at the beginning about those peaks and troughs, and how we needed to build some pigment into those to start losing the grainy tooth, so that our layers of pigment going down start to become smoother. Well, that is basically what we've managed to achieve now. We've achieved a nice all over layer of pigments. Some lovely rich turquoisey undertones, some lovely yellowy undertones. They're all quite harsh still at the moment, but we can soften those by glazing with more colour and lighter layers. So I'm going to go in now just to show this more so. I've got two of my lights, so I've got a warm grey 3 there, and I've also got my ivory. Sure, which one should we go in with first? Let's try the warm grey 3. I'm not sure if this is going to be light enough. I'm going to try it just over here. I might need to go up one more shade. I think I do. Let me just pull up a lighter shade again. I might even pull up a cool grey from here. Okay, this is a cool grey 2, cold grey 2. Sharpen it up a tiny bit. Right. Just over here, you can see this instantly lifting. And softening. There's layers underneath, and they are really, really looking like the pigment is really starting to fill in there now. It's starting to look glossy in there as well. So if I go in as well with a little touch of my ivory, should be able to see some of that effect that we are looking to achieve. I see my pencil strokes are still going in the direction that I said about earlier on. Let's just pull this highlight back in there. Soften the edge of this highlight as well. Okay, hopefully you can see there if I zoom in. Okay, if you look over here, you see the roughness. Over here has only got 1, possibly 2 layers of pigment gone down. Over here we've got 5 or 6, but still a little bit grainy, but you can just see how where we put that last layer of light over the top, it's starting to just smooth out around there now. Okay, so what I'm going to do is we'll carry on using these 3 lights. Oh, and I've also got, almost forgot, my cream, which is like the yellowy one. So we want to pull some of that into here as well. So we'll come back in over the top of this again with earth green. And then if we've lost any of the dark greens, we'll pop those back in again. I'm going to go around now and dot where I can see I've got different colour highlights. I'll use my grey for some of them. I'll use my ivory and I'll use my cream. A mix of them. It's quite, not speckled, but well, I suppose it is sort of speckledy in here, but it's more like big circles of highlight within. So I'm just going through with the cream first of all. I think I'm going to use the whites, some of the highlight, more brighter highlights on this outer edge. Again, the cream keeps it quite warm and quite yellowy. Cool grey and your whites, I say, will keep those lovely cool shades coming through. This area here needs to be a little bit darker again, but before we take it to dark, I'm going to just soften it with some grey, so it'll just pop a little bit more pigment in there, and I'll go back in then over the top. using those same colours I used originally, so a little bit of the dark indigo possibly in there, but it's mainly those two dark greens that we used right back at the beginning. Now this area here is a lot grayer. Hopefully you'll see on, I'm sorry I haven't zoomed out again, you'll see this tooth starting to fill. If I zoom out again I'd rather have it zoomed out again. There we go. Start to see this is all softening up a little bit now. Don't worry, we'll have to come over all of this area again anyway, so I haven't missed anything there. Little touches of grey, but I'm probably going to pop over, grab my white to come down around here. Now we'll go back in and start adding other colours back in. Start with the ivory. Just around there. Up here. Same here, that dark needs to be intensified again. Just come in around with our light first of all. Really gentle with the white. Okay, now you should be starting to see what we were aiming for. It's starting to, like I say, it's smoothing out. But loads of pressure. I've hardly got any pressure on these pencils still, so you've got so much tooth still there that you can utilise. But we're just working our way around, smoothing, looking at whether those highlights within the iris are warm, cool, lifting them all up. And let's say where we lose some colour, we can go back in next and pop back in any of those greens, golds we might have lost, and also any of those little dark areas that need adding in. Same as here, we've got this like wiggly dark line around the edge here. That all needs popping back in and defining better. We put it in quite rough to start with. But starting to look and feel like we were aiming for, or like I was aiming for. And remember, I say this on everything, yours doesn't have to look exactly the same as mine. Same as mine probably won't look exactly like the reference photo. It'll look close, it'll be my version of. But again, if I did this again tomorrow, it'd probably look completely different. I did it the next day, it looked completely different. I probably might use different colours, slightly different placement. It always, you know what I mean, it depends on mood. I'm a little bit cold today, so I've actually got my heater on and my blanket over my knees. If it was warmer tomorrow, I might feel a lot warmer and use some warmer shades in my drawing. It's all, lots of factors go into how you put a piece, or how I put a piece together. Someone was asking this week, sort of like, why had I not done a watercolour pencil underpainting on the double cat portrait? And it's like, well, because I treat each piece I approach individually, and I felt that the cat would look much softer with a lovely Pan Pastel underpainting instead. And that's what I've done, because I don't, not all fur, not all texture is the same, so I don't see why people use exactly the same methods to create every single one of their drawings, because a lot of the time they're just depicting the same fur texture, when that fur texture is actually completely different to maybe a previous piece that they worked on. I just want to add something in over here where we've got this. I just want to soften this a little bit, it's just bugging me a tiny bit in there. Let me just go over here. I've got that light ultramarine just going over that blue. So it's just bugging me a little bit. I think it'll affect this bottom corner. Yeah, that's better. I feel like some of that blue coming in there. And a little sweep of white down through here just to soften this. Again, we'll need to come back into here. I just needed to pop something in there. I need to go over this 2 or 3 more times, but that's enough for it to stop annoying me at the moment. It's just looking so rough in there, it was really just bugging me on that outer edge. Let me just, whilst I'm here, just go in, intensify that dark a little bit again. Quite grainy down here still, so I have to repeat this process a few times. But what I'm going to do is just going to go back like I did initially and dot some of those original colours back in again. Sure. Let's take away my lights for now. Pull back those dark greens that we used early on. A little touch of our dark indigo. I'm just going to pop some of these dark areas back in again, so be a little bit more accurate this time with some of our placement. See, the strokes are still following that rule away from the outer edge towards the pupil. Yeah, it's still really grainy up here as well, so we're going to have to keep repeating this. But hopefully you're understanding what I'm doing and why. It's making sense a little bit. Hopefully this is starting to look a little bit like our eye. See, I'm being a lot more careful about placement of my marks. I know I can go in and glaze over the top again to soften them. So if I'm very silent, I'm really concentrating on my placement of colours. So I've done, that was the chrome oxide green. I'm going to go back in now with the, this is the pine green. Slightly bluier green for over this side. I'll go back in with the turquoisey colours next as well. Just need to increase, I got the black and the blue on this again, but I need to increase the thickness of that pupil. So what was next? One of the turquoisey colours, wasn't it? Let's go back with all three of them again. So we're going with the darkest one first of all, the helio turquoise. Lovely little bits just down here. Again, we'll glaze over it in a bit with earth green and then our lights. Use a lighter turquoise over that side. Same in there. Just put a few little hints of this up through here again. Again, I've still got, like I say, lots of tooth left here if I need it. I'm quite pleased with how this is going so far. There we go. This is a cobalt green. Okay, so now going in with the light cobalt turquoise. Next I'll go in over these areas with my whites to really lighten them. Keep this turquoise mainly to the edges and just down here. Slightly different blue. I need to pop in a little bit of like Prussian blue in here, a little bit of the Prussian blue in there again. It's a tiny different colour just the other side of these lines. Got some in there underneath, just make sure that they come through again before I add my highlights. That's a different blue there, that's the down thread. Okay. Needs to go back to my chrome oxide green, just back in through here. So there's markings. Okay, cool. Right, we're back now to our lights. So I'm just going to sharpen up my whites, my cream, my ivory, that light, so the cold grey too. Also, I need that earth green again in a couple of places. Just looking to see if I need to pop any yellow back in again. Possibly. Possibly. Let's have a look before I go in. Let's just pop in. Yeah, a touch of that grey. Yeah, yellow back over the green gold. Lovely. Don't mind saying lovely so much. It's looking nice. Rather than lovely. So, earth green now. Some of that light. I keep saying light grey, the cool grey too now. I'm not 100% happy with the markings over here. That needs to be thicker. Better. cream next, which is a yellowy colour. Now our ivory. Okay, so now we are onto, I'm sorry, I'm going really quiet in between stages because you can just tell then how much I am concentrating on my reference, making sure I'm getting this placement right. So we went in first of all obviously with our dark, well, put in our highlight first, and then we went in, popped in our darks and then our mid-tones, and then we glazed all over with that earth green. Then we went in and kind of repeated the process, gradually building up the amount of pigment we've got on our pastel mat. And we popped in all of our highlights, popped in our darks again, popped in those colours that have gone AWOL. And just kind of kept repeating the process really. It's just dotting in, and same as I said with the dog eye, you could just keep going on this, keep going, more and more and more and more detail. You can hear a noise in the background. I've got a kind of resident pheasant out in the garden. And him and my little Sherlock, my little white dog, tend to play catch me if you can. And he's a wily pheasant because he's already survived the shoot from across the road. I always make sure there's plenty of food his side of the fence anyway, so he doesn't actually need to venture over into the garden, but I'm sure he just sits on the fence to wind my little Sherlock up anyway. So if you do hear squawking, that's the pheasant. If you hear barking, that'll be Sherlock playing chase. Okay, so I guess I'm quite happy with the way this is going. Still not using much pressure either. Still holding this quite loosely. So if you wanted to go in there with pressure, you still can. You've got lots of layers left. I know, I've gone silent again. Hopefully my pencil's doing all the talking. I think what I'll do is move on to adding some fur quickly. And then that'll give it a lovely surround then as well. And then if I feel that we need to go back in and add any more layers of detail, then we can. I'm hoping, let's say this is giving a lovely effect for you to understand, appreciate exactly what the process was. I said I was going to increase our pupil just a little bit, needs fattening up a tiny little bit. Do you know what, I'm just going to lightly increase the depth of shadow in here. Really lightly now. Just softening back those tiny little bits of black that I did pop in there. Just soften them back a tiny bit there as well. I think for the purpose of the tutorial that we're pretty much there. So I'm going to pop in some fur. That'll give it a nice frame then. And if we need to come back in and tweak, we can. I can still see this line going through here, like where the paper's been scratched or something as well, so you just to eliminate that. I think that should be okay. Okay, so you can see we've added in the, took me a little bit longer than I hoped just to put in some of the fur detail. Now, it's still quite rough, the fur, but obviously we were focusing again, same as with the eye video, the dog eye video, we were focusing more on the eyeball than the actual fur surround, but I just needed to frame it a little bit, but it is still, like I say, quite rough. It needs another couple of reworks. So I just want to go back in again now, just to tighten up a couple of the little bits where kind of like the eye meets the surround. So in here we've actually got a tiny little dip of that black coming down into that blue there. Just little touches. Just want to lift this highlight away from this inner corner of the eye as well. And there is another little couple of bluish highlights in here. I'm just going to highlight them with white first of all. Same as on this outer corner here. A little touch of that blue highlight. So I just might need to pop down a little bit of white there just to lift that back up first. And the same just up here, top of that eyelid. Soften this down through here a little bit as well. Again, like I say, you can just keep on working this. So you have to decide where you draw the line, because this is, like I say, just a study. It's taught you, hopefully, how to see some of those shapes and colours within that iris and how to depict them, how to build your layers on the pastel mats. But it's the same sort of principle really as well for if you're using other types of paper. It's still, you're going to be looking for the same detail in your reference image. Again, you just keep on working around here and sharpening this all up. I'll just use the Albrecht Durers on the background wet and then dry just to fill it in. I was going to do it with Pan Pastel, just so that we got that shape in there quicker. But this is absolutely fine. I'm just going to soften some of this black back here a little bit with the blue as well. Sometimes that black is just a little bit too harsh. Okay, so I'm going to leave this one here for now. I might come back and tweak a little bit more and add a bit more detail, but hopefully you'll have learned to be able to see the colours, build the texture, work on the pastel mats, lots of different things going on there, and hopefully bits of benefit to you. So I'm probably going to keep on working this a little tiny bit more, but there you go, there is your cat eye tutorial. Thank you very much for watching.